Hey guys, 91 Extreme RT here with a little post-launch review on Guild Wars 2. Now I'm going to list the good things, and I'm going to list the bad things. The bad things a lot of people probably aren't going to like because I'm going to be very critical about the things in the game, about little things, about pretty much everything. But I'm critical because I like to be realistic, and I don't like to feed off the hype of everything. I like to look at the facts, look at what's what, and, give you guys insight on how I feel about certain things in the game. So, to start off with questing, it has zone events similar to Rift, but on a lot smaller scale and less epic. The only thing different is that there are multiple little mini events in each little questing little area in each zone that can be going on at the same time, versus like in Rift, it's a large scale invasion that encompasses the entire zone. So for more casual people, the Guild Wars 2 little invasion quest event system is a bit more manageable. So questing is fun. The story is interesting, and each quest hub has its own story and oftentimes its own little cut screen. So it's kind of like reading like an epic medieval fantasy book, but you're playing the main character out yourself and making the story as you go. But on the flip side to that, I get the feeling like I'm having a lot of my time wasted with all the cut screens, because there's a whole shit ton of them. For me personally, I don't like reading stuff or quest logs, stuff like that, but I do like voice acting. So for me, I wish there was an option where instead of going to a cut screen at every possible chance Guild Wars 2 gets, the person that I'm talking to would just audio log or speak what they want to say as I'm running off to my next quest point. And along with that, because there's so many cut screens and stuff like that, I mean, trying to grind the game fast feels boring and daunting, as there's no opt-out of the cut screens features. So compared to other games I've played, it's a very slow-paced game and very story-oriented, which in order to be very story-oriented, it has to be slow-paced. In order for you to get the whole story, like the epic questline story of the game, they can't have you bouncing, quest, and rip right through it. So for people that are into that kind of stuff, it's probably going to be an excellent game for that. But in my personal opinion, I don't like that at all. I like things that are fast and very fast-paced with things. So when it comes to leveling and questing, the game has a very, very similar feel to Star Wars The Old Republic in that it feels like a glorified single-player game. In other ways, it feels like Star Wars The Old Republic in that although there's an open zone, it feels very linear. In that when going from zone to zone, there's ports or loading screens or something. And when there's ports or load screens, it takes away from the open world feel substantially. It takes away from it, in my opinion, in my feelings, almost completely. Games like Skyrim and Rift feel open world in that you can scale mountains and stuff and go wherever you want with no loading screens other than like dungeons or something, instead of taking like a specific path to get somewhere. Like instead of going through the normal walkway from zone to zone, like in Rift, you can just get on your mountain, scale over mountains, and find your way up over a mountain and go that way if you want. It feels open world. So in those games, if you see it, you can get to it really. In Guild Wars 2, it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels very confined in that sense. Now to the auction house. I like the auction house system where you can just post stuff and it automatically sets the price for you equal to the lowest price for that item that's already on the auction house. So it saves a lot of time in searching for what you want to post. Because like in normal games, you have to search for what you want to post on the auction house, see what everybody else has them posted as, and then go back and set your undercut for that. So in the auction house, in comparison to other MMOs, it saves you a bit of time, so you can spend more time out PvPing or questing or farming or whatever the hell you play the game for. So the buffing system. Now, this is something I really like that I think all MMOs should incorporate. This is probably one of the highlights of the game, in my opinion. I like that how you can get other people's buffs just by being within the radius of that person's buffs instead of being forced to be in their party to get them. I like that feature a lot actually because it makes it feel a bit more realistic in that sense. You know, being in a party or not being in a party, there shouldn't be a boundary between the two if you should get someone's buffs. I mean, if they're within the radius of that buffs, they should be able to get them regardless. So in that aspect, I really, really like it. PvP. If you're a PvP person, aficionado, whatever you want to call it, this game is probably the holy grail for you because you can level from start to level cap without doing a single quest if you don't want to. But and on the flip side, if you don't like PvP, you can have an endless list of questing to do. So it tailors to both groups of people. If you're a PvPer, if you're a PvEer, if you're a little bit of both, you can do both. So next is the combat. The combat feels a lot like Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 in the sense of hotkeys. Not the actual combat, but the hotkeys. Unlike most MMOs, instead of having like 20 or 30 different attack keys or like 10 or 15 different macros, in this game you only have like, 4 to 8 attack keys depending if you swap weapons or not. So, and they use the same keys, so when you swap weapons, you use different abilities, but you can always have like an in-combat weapon swap or in-combat weapon swapping to do different things. So let's say you want to pull something from range, you have your gun or bow out, you can pull something from ranged and do your ranged abilities, and then when the enemy gets up close, you can swap over to your daggers and axes or whatever, and then do your melee abilities, and using the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever hotkeys you got set, you can use those same buttons for your axe. So you can have the same buttons use abilities for two different fighting styles, whether ranged or melee or whatever. Now, one thing that I really like, that I also think that all MMOs should incorporate, is that every class has a personal heal on a cooldown that you can use. So you never have to be reliant on a healer to take down elite enemies. You have your own oh shit heal button. So that I really, really like. Overall, my opinion on the game is that it's definitely worth getting. I played beta for like 3 or 4 months, and obviously with having, because I bought the game way back then, and playing it on launch, it's definitely worth getting. It's a really fun game to play, but when it comes down to it, though, looking at the similarities between Guild Wars 2 and other MMOs, it feels just like Star Wars The Old Republic, but in a different skin. Most people didn't like Star Wars The Old Republic because it felt like a glorified single-player game and wasn't worth a sub for that. Luckily for Guild Wars 2, though, it's already free to play, and that's why it's worth getting. Because in my opinion, although it is a very, very good game, in the end it feels like a single-player game and isn't worth a subscription. For me, it's a good game to play on downtime from your normal sub-based MMO, whether it's, Rift, World of Warcraft, whatever else there is. As I've said multiple times before, this is all in my opinion. There's certain and strict criteria I have for games that determines whether they are sub-worthy or not, or whether they are worth buying or not. Guild Wars 2 is definitely worth buying. I mean, is it worth buying? Most definitely. Is it good enough of a game to have a subscription? Definitely not. I would rate Guild Wars 2 on the top end of mid-range MMOs. Could Guild Wars 2 be in the top tier of MMOs like Rift and World of Warcraft? Possibly, but they would have to redo a lot of things in the game to get it to that point, like eliminating the massive amount of cutscenes, make it more polished with the fine details, and make it a true open-world game. But for free-to-play, you can only expect free-to-play quality and polish and features. So its good qualities far outweighs its bad qualities, and is a buy you won't regret at all. I love the game personally, but it's hard for me to adjust to the play style of Guild Wars 2 after playing Rift, which is a game that has all the bells and whistles, and all those bells and whistles are polished to a mere finish. For me personally, in the end, I'd rather pay a subscription to play Rift than play Guild Wars 2 for free, but that's my opinion. Guild Wars 2 is the type of game I'll play on like my shitty laptop when I'm not at home to use my nuclear reactor gaming PC to play Rift. So that's my opinion on Guild Wars 2. That's my little review on it. Definitely worth getting. Fun game to play. For me personally, like I said, I'd rather pay a sub on a completely polished and bells and whistles game than play, a game like Guild Wars 2 for free. But that's just me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully, I know there's going to be some people that agree with some things and disagree with others. But like I said, this is all in my opinion, as every review is. Every review of something is that person's personal opinion. So, alrighty. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.